I have over 700 games I have never played. Life's too short not to, so time to do something about it. Starting off with the one I've been putting off for no good reason. Released in the summer of 2017, developed by Ninja Theory on Unreal Engine 4 and founded on BET, the idea was indie AAA. Smaller budget, full creative control, no publisher breathing down their necks. No safety net, just the game they wanted to make. And it paid off. Third-person action, 7 hours long, set in a dark mythological take on Norse and Celtic underworlds. You play as Senua, a Pictish warrior making her way into Helheim to save the soul of her dead lover. That's the premise. What the game actually is sits somewhat outside that description, and we'll get to that. Nearly a decade on, does it still hold up? Controls are tight, inputs register clean, mouse tracking through combat is precise, and there's no HUD, no prompts, and no minimap cluttering the screen, which is a design choice, not an oversight. The game wants you in, watching, paying attention, and no HUD forces exactly that. The camera sits close to Senua, closer than you'd expect. It's deliberate. At that distance, she looks small against the world around her, against the enemies she's fighting. You feel her scale, it's not a hero scale, and that detail does more for the tone than half the cutscenes. Movement has weight to it. She doesn't glide, and that works in the game's favor. It keeps the whole thing grounded. You're not playing a power fantasy. You're playing someone who is struggling, and the movement communicates that from the moment you take control. Combat runs on light attacks, heavy attacks, parry and kick. Though if you didn't look that last one up, you're not alone. It feels heavy, grounded, fits the tone perfectly. And it also gets repetitive. Not the right way, but in a few hours when the encounter design has shown most of its hand, the formula starts to show. Parry, attack, kick, attack, repeat. When multiple enemies come in, it dissolves into panic parrying more often than not. One thing worth flagging, the game doesn't teach you its controls. No tutorial prompts, no pop-ups. You figure it out yourself. Trial and error or the settings menu. For some, they'll be refreshing, for others, annoying. And a practical note, play it on easy. Higher difficulties turn enemies into damage sponges, and it kills the pacing, which is otherwise genuinely solid. It's a story experience first, let it be one. The structure is a loop. Puzzles and combat, alternating. Solve a puzzle, fight some enemies, bigger puzzle, run for your life, boss fight, repeat. Once you clock the pattern, it becomes transparent. The game's linearity lives here. It's not a deal breaker, but it's honest. The puzzles themselves are about finding rune shapes hidden in the environment, simple mechanically, but the level design around them is impressive. Levels are linear but open, detailed, and hold up well visually for hardware that's a generation old. And then there's the game mechanic. Walk through certain gates and the level restructures itself around you. A ruined archway becomes a wooden bridge. A collapsed wall opens a path, seamless, fluid, occasionally disorienting in the best way. Even after you've seen it a dozen times, it doesn't stop working. That mechanic alone is worth the price of admission. The boss fights land too, though they're less about testing your skills and more about punctuating the story. They don't rewrite the rulebook, but they do change the pace and feel like events, which is exactly what they need to be. Visually, the game doesn't try to impress you with color. The palette is grays with washed out beiges and with just enough cold blue sprinkled in to give certain scenes that sepulchral quality. Restrained, and that restraint signals something. It tells you from the first frame what kind of world you're in. The bleakness isn't accidental, it's load-bearing. A 2021 post-launch patch added ray tracing, reflection and shadow. It's not a visual overhaul, more of a finishing touch that adds a layer of depth to an art direction that was already doing its job. The bleaker interiors pick up the most from it, and as always with RT, there's the performance cost, so it's worth toggling based on what your setup can handle. Then there are the fire sequences, a full tonal shift, frantic and claustrophobic against everything that's quiet and heavy. They work as contrast, and the game knows exactly when to reach for them. Some of the puzzle environments are genuinely striking, moments when the level geometry lines up with the rune shape you're hunting and the composition just clicks. Those are the visual highlights. But none of that is what people actually remember when they talk about this game. The audio design is on another level.
I know what she's thinking. I too late to get into the boat and go back. No one will judge her. No one will ever know. Oh, she heard us.
Built with binaural audio, designed specifically for headphones, and if you play it that way, you'll hear the Furies.
Can you see him? You want to believe it. Is he not real? Is he there? You're alone in these mountains. Is that Lydia? Nothing lives here. You won't survive. You met him by the tree. She met him by the tree. Maybe it's a sign, the tree. What's he trying to tell you?
Voices, whispers, commentary, arguments, doubts, advice, encouragement, occasionally which somehow lands harder than the mockery. They're always there, always reacting to what's on screen, to what Senua's feeling, to what you're doing. It's not a mechanic bolted onto the game. It's the psychological core of it, externalized into sound. The Furies are designed to feel like symptoms, not features, and they pull it off completely. Melinda Taylor's performance as Senua, her voice, her delivery, carries the emotional weight of the whole game. The writing gives her something real to work with, and she doesn't waste a word. Same for the Furies themselves, which feel less like a sound design exercise and more like a cast of characters with their own personalities, their own agendas. Druth's narration wrapping around all of it only adds to that.
Who are you?
It's just a memory. Druth? Is that you? How do you know?
For my tales of the Northmen, they call me Druth.
The score is atmospheric. It does its job, stays out of the way, never overshadows the audio design doing the heavy lifting. Nothing you'll hum later, but nothing you'd want to mute either. Here's the thing about Hellblade. It's not really a game in the way most games are games. It's more like a portrait, someone else's portrait, of grief, of loss, of what it feels like to be trapped inside your own head and still find a reason to keep moving. Ninja Theory worked with neuroscientists and people with lived experiences of psychosis during development. It's not a marketing talking point. It's audible in every design decision. The voices aren't horror game material. They're mundane, they bicker, they doubt, they occasionally say something kind, and that's somehow more unsettling than the cruelty. In 2017, mental health representation in games wasn't a common conversation. Hellblade didn't start it, but it moved it further than anything else at the time. It treated psychosis as something to understand, not something to fear, not something to exploit as a game mechanic. And it proved a model. Indie AAA, mid-sized studio, focused budget, full creative control. Got a real data point here that the industry took seriously. But there's something bigger under that. Hellblade came out at a time when games were either small indie projects or big budget blockbusters built to print money. Not much in between. It helped carve out space for games that are just the right size, moderately budgeted, driven by the people making them, rather than the returns expected from them. You can draw a line from Hellblade to something like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 or later obscure Expedition 33. Games that came almost a decade later and proved the space is real. Ninja Theory got acquired by Microsoft partly off the back of this, which led to Hellblade 2, but that's a video for another time. So, should you play it today? If you've never played it, yes, without hesitation. Especially if you can catch it during a Steam sale for $2.99. 7 hours long, no grinding, no padding, runs well aside from the occasional loading stutter. You sit down, you play through it, and you come out the other side having experienced something most games don't even attempt. Easy Platinum 2 as an added bonus. And if you've already played it, well, let's say that this one might deserve a revisit. The story doesn't change on a second run, the mystery doesn't re-reveal itself, but nearly a decade later, you've changed. The trauma portrayed in the game doesn't differ, but your angle on it may. Give it a revisit. In conclusion then, is Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice a dumpster fire, a bronze, a silver, a gold, or does it sit among the best with the crown? It's a gold. Impeccable audio design, great art direction, committed performance, and a genuinely unique way of using the medium to say something that matters. The combat gets repetitive towards the end, the structure and linearity become predictable, but neither of those things undermine what the game is actually trying to do. it earns its ambition. If you've been sitting on this one, play it with headphones, ideal on an OLED monitor with HDR on, and if you played it around launch, it might just be time for a revisit and maybe finally on that easy platinum too. Subscribe if you liked, and I'll see you in the next video where we find out what it actually feels like to get your brain scanned. See you there.
Kath, I'm half a dead person.